Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Logesh Vincent, and I work as a technology consultant at IBM Innovation Center, Bangalore. And thanks for joining this webinar wherein we're going to do a demo of IBM Worklight. So this is just going to be a basic demo. So if you have a hands-on on Worklight, so I think it might be the pretty same steps that you might have already seen, but for quite a bunch of you who are totally new, I think this demo will be quite useful, wherein I'll be showcasing of how exactly to create a common code base using Worklight, and then deploying the application and creating a common code and then deploying it on multiple simulators for your Windows or for your Android or for your iOS kind of devices. Typically, if you have to run these iOS applications, so you will have to have your emulators for your iOS environment, which typically runs on a MacBook. So I don't have a Mac configure now for you all to show the demo. So what I'll be using is I'll be using my Windows 7 based desktop to actually create an application and show you all a demo of how exactly we can go about deploying it on Android devices and on iOS devices and also on Windows Phone kind of devices. And post that, we'll also see how exactly we can do functional testing using Worklight. So that's a new feature that we have added in Worklight 6.0, and so it doesn't come along with the Worklight plugin. So for doing the functional testing, you will have to install another plugin, a second plugin, which is called as the Mobile Test Workbench plugin. So you'll have to have your Worklight plugin also installed on your Eclipse, and you need to also have your Mobile Test Workbench plugin installed on your Eclipse to do the functional testing and then automated testing of the app that you've just built. And once you have created the functional testing, once you have recorded the testing, you can actually test it on multiple devices like your iOS or Android kind of devices. In fact, you can run the test on the emulators and see whether the application is behaving functionally as it is expected to behave. And then also we'll see how exactly to go about deploying your Worklight application on the actual Worklight server. So this is also a new feature that we've added in 6.0. If any one of you all have worked on the previous editions, which is Worklight 5.05 or Worklight 5.06, so there we didn't have the feature of actually deploying the Worklight application on the Worklight server. So what we used to do was, in Eclipse, by default it comes along with a server called as the Jetty server, and what we used to do was, like when we install the Worklight plugin, we used to mash up the Jetty server that comes along with Eclipse to behave in such a fashion that it behaves as the Worklight server itself. But going forward from Worklight 6.0, whenever you install the Worklight plugin, it also comes along with the WebSphere application server Liberty profile, which is a lightweight WebSphere application server, which is a trimmed down version of your WebSphere application server, wherein the startup time is pretty quick, and it is almost an equivalent to your Tomcat, I would say. And so that is actually pre-bundled in the 6.0 version. And so the moment you've created an application, if you want to test it on your local Eclipse environment itself, so the moment you deploy, it automatically deploys on your WebSphere application server Liberty profile. And we've also added this new feature wherein you can remotely deploy to your server. Say, for example, you have already configured your production server and you want to deploy the Worklight application on the production from being within your Eclipse files or any of the artifacts that is required to be necessarily copied into your VAS or WebSphere application server or Worklight environment to then configure it. So directly by just click and configure, you can directly port your existing client-side server-side artifacts of your Worklight based application onto the remote Worklight production server. So these are the three features that I would like to showcase in today's demo. And so we'll just quickly start with creating a sample application. I hope everyone is able to see my screen. Hello?
Yeah, Logesh, I'm yet to see that. Some installation is happening. Some Java component is getting installed.
Okay. So let me know once it's done. So you should be able to see my Eclipse IDE. So let me know once you see it and we can start.
Now attending.
And just as we wait for the screen to show up, so up three, I think someone just joined. Just for the benefit of the person who just joined, so we just had a discussion about what exactly we're going to look into today. So we'll go about creating a sample Worklight-based application and deploy it on various devices, various simulators, I would say, like for your Android, for your iOS, and for your Windows phone. And then we'll go about creating a functional testing feature, which is a new add in Worklight 6.0. So we'll add a test workbench project to actually test the application that you have just created, and you can quickly do the automated testing on your iOS or your Android emulators. That's the second thing that we would see. And the third feature is a deployment on a remote server, the Worklight server. So that's again a new feature in 6.0. Once you've created your project, you can quickly deploy it onto your production server or the production Worklight server right from being within your Eclipse environment. And so that's the third demo that I would like to showcase today. And as the screen for quite a few of you all is just still coming up, so I would like to just give a little bit exactly Worklight is. And so some of you all, I understand, might be quite new to the technology. And so I would just go about describing what exactly is Worklight. So a Worklight is a mobile enterprise application platform. It is a MEP platform. I'm sure quite a few of you all might have heard what exactly a MEP platform actually means. So MEP actually it simply means build once, run anywhere. Okay, so you can quickly say, for example, you want to develop a mobile application covering multiple of these smartphone operating systems like your Android, your iOS, BlackBerry, or Windows phones. Okay, and say, for example, you would like to connect to the backend databases, multiple of these databases, or for instance, you also would like to connect to your enterprise applications. Okay, so MEP is a platform to use for, and MEP specifies that there needs to be a MEP client and a MEP server. And Worklight is exactly that. It has a Worklight client and a Worklight server. And the major focus of Worklight is actually what MEP specifies. You build once and then you deploy it on multiple environments. So using the Worklight Studio, what we do is we actually create a common code base. And once the common code base is created using your Worklight Studio, and by the way, Worklight Studio is nothing but your Eclipse plugin. If you already have your Eclipse Junos 4.2.2 configured and up and running on your dev environment, all you have to do is just download this Worklight plugin, and you can install it as a plugin into your Eclipse, and then you have your Worklight environment ready, and then you can start creating this Worklight applications. And as I told you, like, it has a common code base. There will be a common folder, and once you create this common application or the common code base, you can create the Worklight environment for different kind of devices, be it your Android, your iOS, be it your tablet kind of devices, or for your Windows phones or your BlackBerry phones. And Worklight also helps you to create Java ME kind of applications or J2ME applications. We support the MIP profile, MIP 2.0. So that's a recent addition that we have added, support for Java ME or J2ME. And Worklight also helps you to develop desktop browser-based applications. Okay, so you can still create an application which will run locally on the desktops, on the desktop browsers, by using your Worklight. And it also helps you to create gadgets for your Windows desktops. Say, for example, if you're using a Windows 7 or a Windows 8 or a Mac desktop, it quickly helps you to create these gadgets. You might have seen these gadgets like your weather application, or for example, the calendar app that sits as a widget or a gadget on top of your desktop. When those kind of applications can quickly be created using a Worklight. And Worklight also has this feature of storing data offline. Say, for example, if there's no any GPRS connectivity, or if your application has a requirement that you need to store data locally and the application has to work offline, yes, Worklight supports it. So we have an offline database which actually stores the data locally, and then whenever there's a network availability or based upon your application programming, you can actually synchronize the data residing on your local device back to your enterprise database or to your enterprise servers. And Worklight also helps you in doing some bit of analytics. So we do both qualitative analytics and quantitative analytics. So when I say quantitative analytics, there's a small footprint of analytics component which gets bundled when you create your application or your mobile app, and that gets and when your application is actually deployed on the mobile device, what happens is like this analytics component actually tracks some of the data like your application usage, your application responsiveness, and then it sends it back to your enterprise server or the Worklight server, wherein from the administrator console you can do some bit of dashboarding to see how exactly the application is performing and what is the usage. And this is the quantitative. And again, if you would like to do the qualitative analysis, when I say qualitative analysis, we are basically trying to improve the performance of the application. Okay, it's more of a customer experience management or a customer behavior, reading the customer behavior pattern. So it's actually, if you're already familiar with this component of IBM called as the IBM Tea Leaf. So Tea Leaf is an analytics software which basically helps to read the customer's usage pattern of an application and tries to improve the performance of an application reading the usage pattern of a particular user or a customer. Okay, so the components of Tea Leaf are also embedded into Worklight so that you can do some bit of analytics on the customer usage behavior as well and see where exactly your application is buggy during the navigation flow, and you can do a record and replay back at your server side, and then you can try to improve your application and quickly you can give a newer release of the same application with an improved performance, and maybe if there's any bugs removed, you can actually distribute the newer version of the same application. So analytics also is a new addition that we have added in Worklight 6.0, and we also have given support for geolocation. Of course, if many of you all on the call might already be using PhoneGap probably to develop some kind of mobile application, and PhoneGap also provides the geolocation toolkits or geolocation APIs. So the major difference between, for your information, PhoneGap is already pre-integrated within Worklight. So for example, you want to access camera or maybe your media playback or your GPS, you can still use your PhoneGap APIs from within your Worklight-based application. And so the major difference, coming back to the geolocation toolkit, so the major difference between what the vendor provides and what IBM provides, basically, using the Worklight version of geolocation toolkit, so it is actually optimized in such a fashion that it doesn't choke your network and it doesn't drain your battery. Okay, so we do batch updates, and then we actually don't try to choke the complete network, and we actually store the data in forms of collection arrays, and then we send it back to the server. And then we also support something called as geofencing, wherein you can fence in particular area, and then you can actually send updates to your mobile application based on the fence area that the radius that you define, and if a particular customer is actually entering that particular radius or that particular region, so you can actually push some promotional messages to the end customer or end user. So these are some of the new features that we have added along with the geolocation toolkit that came along with Worklight 6.0. So that's a brief about Worklight. And so are you now able to see my screen, everyone?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So this is what you're seeing on screen is actually the Eclipse 4.2.2, and I've already configured my Worklight plugin. So Worklight plugin is actually a free download, and you can download it from the internet. So if you just do a search of Worklight 6.0 Developer Edition, so it leads to a location where you can actually go and download the particular plugin, and so you can actually download the plugin, and then you can install the Worklight plugins. So this is I think I hope the refresh rate is pretty fast for you to see my screen. And so I've already installed Worklight 6.0. So it's a zip file which you can either download it directly from the internet, or you can download the zip file and as an archive and install it. So what I would recommend is like you download the local archive and then install it. Otherwise, it's going to take a lot of time to install over the internet. And along with Worklight plugin, so what I've also installed is called as the mobile test workbench. So as I told in the beginning, so if you want to do a functional testing of your application, you will also have to download another plugin called as the mobile test workbench, which we just recently launched for the functional and automated testing. So you'll have to download that plugin as well and install. And I have also installed the ADT, the Android development toolkit, because we are not actually reinventing the emulators, I would say, because since the vendors are already providing their own corresponding emulators, which emulates the OS specific features for the corresponding device. So what we do is like we actually integrate those emulators into your Eclipse, and then so what we do when you finally run the Worklight application, so you run these Worklight application on these integrated emulators or SDKs which the vendor is already providing. So I'll be using Android emulators to actually show the demo. So that's the reason why actually I've already integrated the ADT, the Android SDKs into my Eclipse environment, so that it will be useful when you see the demos. And probably if you want to actually see a demo of on your iOS kind of devices or a Windows kind of devices, you will have to actually download those corresponding SDKs, and you will have to integrate it and then test it on those corresponding emulators. But what Worklight also provides is something called as simulators. We call it as the mobile browser simulator for any first level of testing that you would intend to do. So you need not even have your emulators installed or configured. You can directly install the application on the mobile browser simulator, and then you can see how exactly the UI is going to behave on various kind of devices or various kind of layouts or form factors of those devices. So we'll see both. So first what we'll do is we'll first create a sample application and we'll deploy it on the Worklight server, and then what we'll do is we'll open the mobile browser simulator and see how exactly the application is rendering on the particular mobile browser simulator. So with that, I will just start creating an application. So I'll just say file new, and I'll select Worklight project, and so I give this project name as a demo project. Okay. So as you see on the screen, there are 4 kinds of applications or project templates that you can create. So one is a hybrid application. So hybrid application, in simple terms, it means mix of both your web resources and your native resources combined together into a single application. So you can have the native features of the phone, maybe you can use your phone gap APIs or even the native code into your application, and then you can have your web resource code also and integrate it and create a hybrid application. And the second category of application is called as an inner application. So even before talking about inner application, there is the 4th component that you see, which is called as the shell component. Just to brief you what exactly a shell component actually means is, when you're developing an application to an end customer, so it could be a B2C kind of an application or a B2E kind of an application. So when you're typically developing an enterprise-based application, say for example, you're developing an application for an organization like ABB, and they say that, okay, you can create a mobile app for my organization, but my organization has a restricted area, so we don't want the application to access any camera, or say for example, we don't want the application to access maybe the GPS location, so we don't want the app to reveal the GPS location. So what you can quickly create is something called as a Worklight shell. Probably if there's a quality assurance team, they can quickly create a Worklight shell, which is the outer core layer, and then you can disable the features for your camera and maybe your GPS, whatever is not required by your B2E customer and the enterprise class customer, and then you can actually upload this code into something called as a Worklight Application Center, which is something like a private app store, which can also be used for development. And then probably the UI team or the business logic team, which is going to develop the application, will develop something called as the inner application, which you see as the second category over here on the screen. So the inner application is basically going to be your web resource code and mix and match of both your web and a native kind of a code. And the developer who's actually developing the inner application is confined to develop those features which are actually only which is bound to the shell component. Say for example, if in the shell, if the camera feature is already disabled, the developer who's developing the inner application module will not be able to write any piece of code to actually access the camera or to make your application access camera when the application is actually deployed on the end user's device. So that is about the shell component and the inner application. And the third one that you see is the native API. So the usage of native API is twofold. One is basically to create your J2ME application or the Java ME application. So if you want to actually develop an application for a feature phone, for a phone which is capable of running a Java virtual machine, so you can quickly select the native API and then you can create a J2ME kind of an application. And also, say for example, you've already invested in developing some native applications for your iOS or for your Android, and to integrate with the Worklight enterprise class features that Worklight has to provide, you want to integrate your existing native application for your iOS and Android into Worklight. That also can be integrated within your Worklight using the Worklight APIs which is provided in your Eclipse Studio. So for now, what we'll do is we'll create a hybrid application. Okay, I say next, and so I give a project name, which is I'll just give it as a demo app. So as you see on the screen, there are three kind of UI frameworks that you can add to create an application. So these are mostly the JavaScript UI frameworks. And say for example, the project requirement is that you'll have to develop an application using jQuery Mobile. You can create an application using jQuery Mobile. Or if you're going to use Dojo Mobile, so you select the second option, and Dojo Mobile is already pre-integrated into Eclipse. So you need not actually download and configure the libraries. So all you have to do is just click on the Add Dojo toolkit, and the Dojo libraries are loaded for you, or the Dojo modules are loaded for you. The third category is the Sencha Touch. So if you want to develop the UI using your Sencha Touch, so you can just click on the checkbox next to the Add Sencha Touch, and then just click on the folder and then navigate to the folder location where you have your Sencha 2.0 or whatever version of libraries that you have for Sencha Touch, and it will be automatically configured and loaded into your project environment for you to develop a Sencha based application. For our demo today, we'll create a jQuery Mobile based application. So what I do is I just click on the checkbox next to Add jQuery, and I point it to the folder where exactly I have my jQuery. Okay, and I just select that folder and say OK. So I have these three folders, subfolders: CSS, images, and JS. So this is a jQuery mobile folder structure, and I just select all three, and I just say finish. So it will create the common code base and the folder structure of a Worklight application. So it just wants to change the perspective. So I select yes, and so what you see on the screen as soon as the project is created is the application descriptor.xml file. So if you want to add some specific data to your application, so you can add it using your application descriptor XML file, or if you just go to your source of your application descriptor, so it will have your application name, in this case a demo app, and the application author's name, and you can give your company URL and any images that you want to add as a thumbnail, so you can add it in your application descriptor.xml file. And the next step is actually we'll just have a look into the project structure. So you have all these folder structures already created for you and the libraries loaded. So you have your Worklight server library. So you have your Worklight JE library.jar and API.jar. This is basically for your integration with your Worklight server. And then you have your JRE environment where you have all your necessary jar files loaded for you. And your PhoneGap or your Apache Cordova is also pre-integrated into your Worklight. So if you want to create a PhoneGap based application using your Worklight, yes, you can do that. And On the server side, if you want to add any Java code, say for example, you want to do some parsing of a data and you want to write your own parsers, or if you want to encrypt whatever data that is going from the client to the server or server to client, and you want to have an intermediary to do for example, the encryption. So you can write your Java piece of code, and then on the server, which is basically going to sit on your Worklight server, and you can also develop this code within your Eclipse Studio, the Worklight Studio, and you can add the Java files into your server/Java folder, and then again the JavaScript libraries. So you have your Worklight APIs, and of course your PhoneGap also is added into it. And then what you see is called as the adapters folder. Okay, so and adapters are basically this. Say for example, you're developing a Worklight based application. For security reasons, we don't allow the mobile application to talk to any of the backend data sources, be it your database or your web services, or maybe any message queues or your own enterprise application or legacy application. We don't allow the mobile app to directly talk to any of the data sources or data endpoints. Okay, this is for security. So what we do is we write something called as adapters, which are actually going to sit on the Worklight server. Okay, and say for example you want to make a database call for some bit of authentication, for example. So what I'll do is I'll deploy this adapter, which makes a call to a SQL call to your database and fetches the data. And so from my Worklight application, I'll make a call to the adapter to do the validation check, and then finally based on the result, I actually allow the user to log into the application. So, so there are 4 types of adapters that you can create. One is your HTTP adapter to talk to web services, and second is your SQL adapters to talk to databases. The third is your JMS adapters to talk to your message queues, and the 4th category of application is called as the WebSphere cast iron. So that's
Logesh, sorry to interrupt you, but we are not able to join into the presentation. So when we are clicking the link, it is saying the event is not yet started.
No, I'm not doing any presentation. Actually, I'm on my Eclipse IDE. See my Eclipse Studio?
No, I'm not. Yeah, that is the problem actually.
Okay. Because it's already in a shared mode.
But is it on the same link as you have?
Yes, it's on the same link, and I have shared my screen.
Okay. But when I'm clicking on to that, but it is saying that event has not started yet.
1 second. But is there anyone who's already seeing my screen?
Hi, this is Vikas. I am able to. Yeah.
Okay. Probably I don't know whether it's a browser problem. So probably if you can try using your Mozilla or
No, I
Chrome.
need to check also.
Okay, because my side it's completely shared. So
Okay, I'll try. Please carry on.
okay. So who's this? I didn't get your name.
Tul Shukla from L&T Infotech.
Okay. So in the interest of time, I'll continue. So probably you can just change the browser, and you can try logging in again. So yeah. So we are talking about adapters. So adapters, there are 4 types. So your SQL, your HTTP adapters, your JMS adapters for message queues, and then your cast iron. The cast iron is basically an IBM adapter. Say for example, you're developing a mobile application and you want to quickly integrate with any of these cloud services or enterprise services. Say for example, like your Salesforce.com, your Siebel, your JD Edwards, or your SAP services. So IBM has already a set of plugins or adapters which is already created to talk to any of these enterprise products or your cloud services. And so if you're using the IBM Cast-iron adapter in the interest of saving time to develop your application, you can actually quickly integrate those Cast-iron adapters as well to talk to your SAP or Oracle or whatever kind of. We already have some 200 plus adapters. So you can quickly integrate those adapters and quickly start connecting to any of those enterprise services or the cloud services. So that's about the adapters. And the next folder that you see is the apps folder. Apps is where you are actually going to create your mobile application. So all the work is going to happen within the apps folder. So if you remember, like the project, the application name that we created was demo app. So which is what you see in this folder structure. So you have a common folder that is created. So this is where most of the coding is going to happen. So if you expand the common folder, you see these subfolders called as CSS images and jQuery mobile, just because we imported the jQuery library. So it's just getting reflected over here. Otherwise, the major folders for your Worklight application are CSS, images, and your JS. And you'll also have a HTML. Whatever application name that you've created, you'll have the application name .html. In this case, what we have created is demo app.html. So if you want to maintain a single HTML file for your complete application, yes, you can have a single application, and for each screen you can separate it using different divs. Okay. Or if you want to have multiple HTML files and you want to have a MVC pattern, which is also possible, and you can have a model view controller kind of a pattern wherein you can have your model, your view, and multiple set of HTML files under one particular folder. You can do that as well. And so most of the development that happens for Worklight is going to revolve around JavaScript. Okay, and so you can use any of your JavaScript that you're familiar with, something like a jQuery mobile or your Dojo mobile or Sencha. And so these are all the client-side JavaScripts. And if you remember, we just spoke about adapters, which I'm not covering today. But adapter, what you're going to write is again going to be JavaScripts, but those JavaScripts are going to be server-side JavaScripts. So it's not a multiple set of files that you're going to write. It's a single .xml file. For adapters, it's a single .xml file which has a configuration to connect to your database, your credential details, and all those things. And then you will have a .js file, which is your implementation.js file, which actually, say for example, fetches the record set from your database and then do some bits of processing and then send it back to your mobile application. So those kind of scripts can be written within the adapters. So those are the server-side JavaScripts. But what we're going to look today is more on the client-side UI-based development JavaScript. And so as you see in the screen, when I click on this demo app.html file, so it opens a split mode of a screen. It opens both the design and design screen and your source screen in a split mode. And you also on the right hand side, you see the palettes. So you have different palettes. Say for example, if you are developing an application using plain HTML5 or HTML, so you'll have your HTML tags already listed there. Or in this case, now we are going to develop using jQuery mobile. So the jQuery mobile widgets are already reflected on the side. So what we'll do now is I'll just try to add a header and footer, and then try to create a basic app and compile it on multiple of these device simulators. So I'll just add a header. All I do is just do a drag and drop. So it tells me where exactly I need to add and where exactly I want to add, and you can add the header and footer in the corresponding location. So I think it didn't get added. Okay. So I just added my header. So I'll add my footer also. I'll just drag from the palette and I'll drop it. Okay. So I added my header, my footer, and probably I could add. Oh. Hello.
Now departing.
So I'll add a
Now departing.
table.
अतुल शुक्ला LNT वहाँ पे.
So I'll switch over to the design mode. So probably I'll add some test, something like your username, password. Try to add a text input. So this is just so we'll just compile this to see how exactly the output is rendering. So what I would do is, once I created the code, okay, so automatically it gets added into the source, and then I just right click on the demo app, the app that I created. So please remember that I'm not clicking on the project name, and I just right click on the app name, and then what I say is I just click on build all and deploy. The moment I click on build all and deploy, what happens is the application which I just created, it's actually getting compiled, and then it's actually getting deployed on the Worklight server. Okay. So as I told you, when you install the Worklight plugin, it also comes with the default WebSphere application server Liberty profile. So now what happens is, as you see on the screen, the application deployed successfully with all environments onto the corresponding Worklight server, which is actually the development server. So once the application is deployed, the next step what you'll have to do is just right click on the demo project that you just created, and then say, so this might not be available in the older versions of Worklight, so this is new with Worklight 6.0. So once the application build all and deploy is completed, so next step is you click on the right click on the project and then say open Worklight console. Okay, so this is what the console is going to look like. So it's so Worklight console is nothing but your admin console. So it is part of your Worklight server. So to get a better view, I'll open in a new browser. Okay. I'll open it. So as of now, we have not created any native environment for your Android or for your iOS. So this is just your browser-based resource that you just created. So if you want to have a look at it, just click on this preview as common resources, and your application should actually open. So this is what you see, your header, footer. I mean, of course, forget about the alignment, but this is what you would actually see. And so now what we'll do is we'll try to create an environment for your maybe for your Android and for your Windows. So I'll just tell you how exactly to go about it, but before that let me make some slight modification in the application itself. So I'll just drag one more text input. So if I want to add an environment for a particular device, so again what I do is just right click on the app and then say go to new and then say Worklight environment. So when I select Worklight environment, you see various mobile device types. So you see iPhone, you see iPad, Android phones and tablets, BlackBerry 6, 7, BlackBerry 10, Windows Phone 7.5 and Windows Phone 8. And also for desktop based gadgets, you can select a Windows 8 or even for your Adobe. And then Worklight also helps you to create a mobile web app. So if you want to create a mobile web app and deploy the app actually on the server, but the icon is going to still sit on the mobile device, you can create a mobile web app as well. So for test purposes, what I'll do is I'll select iPhone and I'll select Android and I'll also select mobile web app. Okay, and I'll also select Windows Phone 8, and now I'll say finish. So the project name needs to be whatever project and the corresponding app name. So once you've selected all those, whatever environment you want to create the build for, just click those, right click on the check boxes and then say finish. So once you say finish, automatically the environment gets created for the corresponding device environments, and the code that gets generated is also partly native. So say for example, after creating the project, after creating a common screen, the layout and whatever you want the application flow to be like, and then if you want to actually create the environment, and then you're free to export that part of code if at all you require into a native IDE. Say for example, if you want to after creating this much, you want to actually from now on you actually want to continue your development in your Xcode for your iOS kind of applications, or maybe using your Java for your Android. So you can actually quickly export the code, import into your native IDE, and you can actually start continuing your development activity. And the project structure that gets created is very similar to the native format that you develop if you're using your Xcode or your Android ADT. And you can also, you're free to actually develop your further code using your whatever IDEs and compiling. So that kind of flexibility is also available. So now let's have a look at the environment that we have just added. So now we can see we earlier only had the common folder, but now we have the Android folder and the iPhone folder and also the mobile web app folder and the Windows Phone 8. So if you examine the code, you have something called as the native, okay? And when you expand the native folder for the corresponding device environment that you just created, the project structure is very similar to your native. So you already have your Android manifest.xml file created for your Android environment, and similarly if you go for your Windows or iOS, you have your corresponding native environments created. The .plist files, everything gets created, and it's very native. And so if you want to quickly export it to your corresponding native IDs, you are free to do so. So this is the project that gets created. So once you have added your environment, the next step again is to actually build all and deploy. So I'll again right click on the app, I'll build all and deploy. So when I say build all and deploy, it automatically deploys on the Worklight server. And once it's deployed, we can test it on the simulator to see how exactly the UI is going to render on the corresponding the device screen. And it's compiling. And Worklight also gives you this feature for runtime skins. And say for example, you want to actually the skin depending upon the type of device and type of form factor the device has, you want to actually the skin to render to the type of device, the layout to render according to the type of device. You can add something called as runtime skins. And when you first deploy and run your application, Worklight tries to determine what environment the device is actually running on, and corresponding to that, you can render the corresponding size or layout or type of screens to correspond to the type of device that you're actually running the application on. So now the application is already deployed. So again, I'll open the Worklight console. So if you want to open your Worklight console, just right click on the project and then say open Worklight console. Now I already have a console open. So what I'll do is I'll just do a refresh. So I'll just do a reload. So now you are able to see. So earlier we only had the common preview, but now that we have added for your iPhone, your Android and your Windows phones, we also have a mobile web app. Okay. So you have all the corresponding environments which is now already deployed on the Worklight server, and the version that we have deployed is version 1.0. Okay, so you are free to, as an administrator of Worklight, you are free to lock this version, meaning to say that the user to whom you are deploying can't upgrade to the next version. He is only bound to use this particular version. Or say for example, if you want to send any kind of notification, you can send a notification to the end user's device if the application is up and running. So even before going to that level, I think we'll now see how exactly it's going to render on a simulator. So just click on the iPhone and it will automatically open the mobile browser simulator. which is already deployed on the Worklight server. So it is loading. So it's still taking some time. Forget about the layout, but so this is how it's going to render on an iPhone 4. Okay, so similarly, if you want to see how exactly it is going to render on iPhone, maybe the iPhone 5, okay, so you can actually select the corresponding version, and it automatically renders the UI device that you actually select from the drop down from the top, and so the mobile browser simulator, mostly it is used to test the UI based features and not the operating system specific features. If you want to test any operating system features like a camera or something very native, you will have to test the application on an emulator or on a real device. Okay, but here using the IBM mobile browser simulator, we have also added phone gap support. Say for example, you want to access camera, or maybe you want to access the GPS and stuff like that. So we already have those provisions added for you. So all that you'll have to do is do a drag and drop and to test a camera feature or a GPS feature, and automatically it gets loaded into your simulator application, and you can actually test the application. And it also helps you to do a rotate. Okay, so you can view the application both in a landscape mode and also in a portrait mode. Okay, and say for example you want to add a device side by side, so you can actually try adding a device. So in this case it's only an iOS environment. So if you want to compare between iOS 4 and iOS 5, so I just add iOS 4. So the screen size is much smaller for iOS 4. So this is how it actually renders for an iOS 4 and iOS 5. So you can have a side-by-side comparison of how exactly your UI is going to render, and you can do the testing accordingly. And you can also use the phone gap features that you see on the left-hand pane, and you can add it, and then you can start testing. Now, if you want to have a look at the Android, again you click on the Android icon, and it opens the mobile browser simulator, and it actually renders the application on your screen. And once you do that, so this is basically for an Amazon Kindle Fire, and probably if you want to test it for various other types of devices, okay, so you can quickly choose the corresponding one. So for example, I want to test on a Samsung Galaxy Note. I just select that, and it opens it. And if you want to have a portrait and a landscape, yes, again I can do that. And so if I want to do a cross comparison between, say for example, I'll choose a smaller version, maybe a Motorola Droid, and maybe if I want to add another device, something like your HTC 1S, so I can just add it, and then I can add a cross comparison of these kind of devices. So this is how it actually renders on the emulator, but the simulator. But if you want to actually test it on a real emulator, so what you'll have to do is once the application is already built and deployed, particularly for your Android, what happens is it also creates a folder called as demo project suffixed by Android. Whatever project name that you've created, which is actually suffixed by Android, you also have that project getting created. So this is actually the native file. So you can generate your .apk file from this particular Android project. So if you want to test this application on the emulator, just right click on this folder which just got created when you compiled it, which is called as the demo project suffixed by Android. Right click on it and then say run as, and then say run as Android application. So it will automatically start the emulator, and then your application will be directly displayed on the emulator. So this is why I've already, as I told in the beginning, like I've already integrated my ADT SDK manager, Android virtual device, and your Android SDK manager for my emulator to be configured within my Eclipse, so that once I created my Worklight application, all I can do is just right click on the project that I've just created and then say run as an application. It automatically deploys on the Android emulator, and then it shows how exactly the UI is going to render, or maybe whatever native features is going to render on the corresponding device. So the Android emulator is just loading. It might probably take some time. And similarly, if you want to test it on Windows or maybe your Mac kind of iOS kind of devices, So you will have to actually integrate those SDKs, or if you want to test on an iOS, you'll have to integrate with your Xcode, and then you can launch the application on your iOS emulator, and you can actually run on it. And similarly for your BlackBerry, and you can download the WebWorks development setup, and then you can actually configure the emulator, and you can directly create the Worklight application and then deploy it on the emulator, and you can test it. So it's taking a little bit of time. So I have configured Android 2.2, and I also have a Android API level, I think it's 17, and we have the Android virtual device 4.2.2 configured, basically to showcase the mobile functional testing feature. So it's taking a while. So let's give it a minute, and once we've seen this, I think the next that we'll go on is for your functional testing. So I think we already close to time. So I think we'll quickly run. So we'll do the functional testing, and then we'll do the remote deployment on the Worklight server, and then I think I'll open it for questions if you have any, and we can finish the demo for today. So any questions so far in whatever we have seen and whatever we have discussed while the emulator loads?
Hello. Yes, Lokesh, this is Pranish from BCD. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Tell me.
Basically, there is one demo project, demo app, Android, that folder is there.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Can generate APK file from this. This is basically an Android project, and we can generate APK file from this folder.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, you can. So you want me to show that?
No. If I want to generate some other installation files, say for iOS or for some other OS, how can I do it?
Actually, for Android, you can whatever the project you see, demo of Android. So what you do is just right click on that and say Android tools, and then say export as an APK, and then you can directly create an APK file. Okay, so this is for Android. And for your iOS, what will happen is a zip file will already be created. Let me go to that folder, demo app, Android. So package. So here you see this demo app 1.0 iPhone.zip, right?
Fine. Yes.
So so if you want to create a native .ipa file, what you'll have to do is you'll have to integrate with your Xcode. Xcode is your development environment for your iOS, and then from there you can import this, because this is actually a native project structure. You can import it, and so you can create an archive from your Xcode environment, which automatically generates your .ipa file, and then once you create the .ipa file, you can actually deploy it on the actual device, and then you can test it out.
Okay, fine. So basically, I need a iOS development environment if I want to generate IPA file, right?
Yes.
So as for the other OSs too.
Yeah. Otherwise, in the sense, like, yeah, again, if you want to create for your BlackBerry, yeah, you'll have to integrate with your BlackBerry WebWorks, and then you can actually start creating your whatever for BlackBerry it is a bar file. So you can create your bar file using your integrating with your WebWorks or whatever.
Yeah, that's fine.
That they provide. So that's how it gets created. But you can create all your code, and all that you have to do is just to create those environments. But Apple is pretty tight, and so they are strict in their rules and regulations, so we can't break it. So that's how you have to create the application. So let's see whether the emulators come up. I think my machine is slightly slow. It's taking some time. So as it's taking time, so I'll quickly show you how to deploy the application on a remote server, and then we'll come to the functional testing. So here you have your demo project. So, and down below you see your Worklight development server, which is actually your server which comes bundled with your Worklight plugin. But now if you want to add your own server, what you'll have to do is just go to File, New, and go to Other and select Server, and so you'll get this server option. Just say server, next, okay, and I'll select IBM WebSphere applications because I've already installed a Worklight server on my machine, which is running on top of a WebSphere application server Liberty profile. So I'll select that, and then I'll say Add. Okay, so down below you have your server runtime environment. So there I just right click and say Add, and so I'll have to configure where I've installed my Worklight actual production server. So I'll go to my computer, C, and I'll go to IBM, and I go to Worklight, sorry, not Worklight, WebSphere Liberty. So I'll say OK. So this is where I've configured my Liberty server, and make sure even before you start developing your project, make sure Java version that you are running on the device is actually on your desktop is JRE 1.7, because if you are running on lower versions, you will get errors while you are trying to compile or while you are trying to deploy or add a server environment. So make sure you run Java 1.7 so that you don't have any issues when you're trying to compile your application and deploy. So once you've deployed the Studio, install your, even before you install your Eclipse Studio, you upgrade to Java version 1.7 and you can start your development activity. Okay, so now I say I've configured the path to the Liberty profile server, which is my remote server, and then I say finish. Okay, and in the drop down, so whatever Liberty profile I just created, it gets added. So I just select that and I say finish. Okay, so once I say finish, the server environment gets added. So it is not shown here. I'll open the server perspective. Oh, it's here. So the server just got added. So the default one is the development server, and wherein you already have your mobile browser simulator and your application already deployed. And again, if you are again in my WebSphere application server, I already have some couple of projects which is already deployed. So I'll just remove one of them. So what I'll do now is, since I've added a new Worklight server to my Eclipse environment, I'll try deploying one of my application into my remote server. So what I'll do is, I already have a project. I'll not deploy this demo whatever we created. I have another project. I'll try to import that project and deploy it. So it's on my archive, existing project into workspace. Next, browse over my desktop and say finish. Okay. So this is enabling translation project. This is basically a project which tells you how exactly you can show your different kind of languages corresponding to the region. Okay. So be it your French, your Spanish, Hebrew, or your Arabic kind of this one. So we'll try deploying this application, which is a example for your localization. So I'll just right click on the project, go to my apps folder, just right click on the project and then say run as, I'll say build all and deploy. So okay, before that actually I didn't configure which server I have to deploy to, so that's my mistake. So I'll just configure my server and then I'll deploy it. It's actually compiling. So if you have to change the target server where you actually want to deploy it and test it, so right click on the project and then say change Worklight target server. Okay, so you get this window. So you want to choose between whether you want to test on the development server or on the production server. So in this case, I want to deploy it on my actual Worklight server, which is the second option, website application server Liberty profile. Just right click that, and the context path can be the same, whatever the project name, and then I will say save. And now if I actually go to the apps folder, right click, deploy and compile, or build all and deploy. Now it is actually getting deployed on the remote Worklight server or on the actual production kind of a Worklight server, if that is the server that you're going to actually deploy and test on. So automatically the corresponding application will get added into your remote server. So you can just see the enabling translation project. No, it just got added. So if your refresh rate is high, so you can see this enabling translation project just got added, and it's getting added into your Worklight server. And once it gets added into your remote Worklight server, you are free to test it on that particular server. So let it get deployed, and we'll see how exactly the UI is, the application is rendering on the simulator. And then we'll go on to the testing feature, and we'll quickly finish that. I think we are spilling over time, but I think we'll quickly test it out. So my application is now deployed on the remote server. So now I'll just right click on the project and then open the Worklight console. Again, I'll want to open it in my browser, not within my Eclipse. So I just copy the URL and then paste it on my Chrome. So
Now departing.
okay, so now now you see this enabling translation app already created, because in the earlier server, the development server, we actually had the demo app deployed. Okay, so but in my new production server, I have my enabling translation app deployed. Okay, so once it's deployed, and say for example you want to see how it's going to render, just click on it and then open it, and it's just opening on the emulator. So this is in English, and probably if you want to open maybe the French, just right click and it opens the French. This is just an example for your localization. Probably the Hebrew, just opens for Hebrew and Arabic, and again it shows how exactly it is going to render for your Arabic. Okay, so I think so this is how it deploy, and it's going to run on emulator, and we'll see. I mean, the emulator is still loading, so I think I'll kill this emulator, and I will quickly go to the final thing. We'll now see how exactly we can do a functional testing. And so I've already installed the mobile test workbench plugin into my Eclipse IDE. So now what I'll do is I'll create a test workbench. So I'll just right click, say new, and I'll go to other, and you go to the test option. So go to test, and select test, create a test workbench project. Basically, if you want to do a testing of your application, say next, and say a demo test project, and just give a project name. Go to next and select whatever is required, the data pools, results, and tests. Probably if you're a tester, you might have some idea on this, and then say finish. So once you finish, automatically the test project gets created, wherein you're going to create your test cases, but we are not going to develop or handwrite any kind of test cases. Automatically using your mobile test workbench, while you're doing your functional navigation and flow, automatically the test cases get recorded, and automatically the test cases will be created into your test workbench. We are going to see that. So now it is just taking a little bit of time to actually create the application. Create the test workbench. So once this is done, I think we start actually testing actual application. So I will, if you want to change the perspective, I will say yes, and it will open the test workbench perspective. And you want to create a test from a new recording, I'll just say cancel. Okay. So now what I want to do is I'll start the emulator. Okay, because I already installed a test for you to do a functional testing. A test workbench client already needs to be running in your emulator. Okay, so I'll just quickly add. I've already installed a test workbench client in the emulator, so I'll start that particular version of the emulator. I'll go to my Android virtual device. I've installed the test workbench client on an Android 4.2.2. So I'll select that and I'll say start, and I'll say scale to real display size 7. I'll launch the emulator. So this will launch the emulator wherein I already have my test workbench client already created. And then the next step is like we'll try to add a device, and then we'll add a project, and then we'll start doing a functional testing. So we'll let it load, and we'll quickly go to the next step. So the emulators now come up. So if you just open the emulator, and if you go to the menu option, so you already see this blue one, the IBM Rational Test. So that is the test workbench client. So the client needs to be installed even before you instrument your application to record the test cases. So I've already pre-configured that. So once that is done, now the next step is actually to add a device. So I will again go to my Eclipse workbench, and I'll say File, New, and I'll say Other, and then again I'll go to my Test, and I'll select Add a Device, say Next. So actually the device needs to be connected to my Eclipse in order to generate the test cases. So this is the URL that gets generated. So I'll have to I'll just copy this URL and configure it in my emulator, which will be doing it shortly in a while. So I'll just take a note of it. Okay. So, or if you have the QR code also is available. If you want to quickly scan it and then you use it on your mobile device, you can do that as well. If you have a real mobile device wherein you are doing the testing. So for now I say finish. So once I say finish, so you get the actually the device URL. So now you'll have to configure it with the emulator which we just started, so which I'll just do now. So I will just configure this URL in my test workbench client. So in my emulator, I open the rational test workbench client, and I just type in the address. HTTP 9.79.216.152 colon 7878 is the port number where the test client is listening. I'll say OK. Now you see that after I configure the IP, so now you see the emulator is now connected to the device. So earlier this space was blank, but now you're getting that blue bar wherein you have your device added, and you also see that connected status. So which means that now your test client, the test workbench client, is now connected to your emulator, wherein you are actually going to do your test recording. So now the next step is actually we need to add an application. So we'll actually see how exactly to add an application and then configure it, so then we can instrument that application and do the recording of the test cases. File new, go to file new other, and now I say again under test I select add the application, say next. Okay, I'll select application from the local storage, and it's an Android application, so I'll click on A, and I'll navigate to the corresponding location where I have my application APK file available. So I'll go to my Worklight folder and go to Worklight 6.0, and I'll open the corresponding folder. So I'm opening the APK file. So I just give a description to that. I'll say next. So I'll select that wherein I'll also select the test project wherein I want to do my functional testing recording, and then I'll say finish. So now my application will get added. Okay. So wrong configuration. So this is basically because the error that you see, wrong configuration, is because of the wrong version of the JDK that's getting added. So you will have to actually correct that. Got it off. So you'll have to I think add the Java path. I'll add this, add I think there's an issue with JVM. So what you do is once you've added this application, and the next step is actually you can deploy this application on the emulator. And once the application is deployed on the emulator, what you'll do is you can start doing the click of whatever screens that you would like to open. And once you open the application and you click on the various navigation screens, automatically the test cases will be created at the backend into your demo test workbench project. And if you are also free to add your own test cases in between. Say for example, in navigating between one page to another page, you also want to add another test case, you can add that, and then you can customize it as well. And once you have actually done the test case recording, you can stop it. I'm not able to show it because of the error that is popping up. And so once you have done the recording, so if you want to do a replay, and whatever test case that gets recorded, you can just do a play of it on any of the emulators, and automatically you can see the navigation flow of your application in an automated fashion. And once the test is done, it tells you whether the test case is a success or a failure. Okay. So I think I'm not able to show it because of the JVM issue. So once that is done, you can actually do the testing, and probably if you want to improve any of the bugs that you have seen, you can quickly modify the bugs, and then you can actually finish the testing of your application. So that's it for today's demo. And so any questions so far and whatever we have seen, or so any next steps that anyone would like to share? So it's open to you all. So any questions from team? Hello? 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 You able to hear me? So any questions, anyone? So I think we'll wind up with this if there are no questions. So thank you team, thanks for your time for attending this demo on Worklight. I'm sorry for the delay, we have just spilled over another 20 minutes. So if you have any queries or any questions, so what you can do is like you can send a mail to me, and we actually can continue working together in terms of developing a prototype or a sample proof of concept. And if you want any kind of trainings, I can help you in doing a 1 or 2 day kind of a training where I can help you and to actually develop the application. So there are some questions on the chat. So question from Shyam Prasad. The reason why we need Juno's the Worklight 6.0 build that we have just created, it's just configured. It's just only tested on Juno's 4.2.2. And that's the only reason we say that it runs only on Juno and not on an Helios or not on an Indigo. The earlier versions used to run on an Indigo or a Helios, but with Worklight 6.0 there is a catch. So as of now we run only on a 4.2.2, and shortly we are going to release the next version of Worklight. Probably it should be 6.05, and probably during that version we'll have another version. We'll have maybe a broad support for various Eclipse editions that are available in the marketplace. Okay, and yeah, I can share the recording as well. I think Raviranjan wants a recording, so I can share the recording once it's done. So any more questions on the chat? So if you're not able to hear me clearly on the call, probably you can post more questions. So if there are no questions, then I think I'll just give a minute. If nobody's typing on the chat, probably I will call it a day.
Lokesh, this is Pranesh.
Yeah, Pranesh.
Do we need Java JDK 1.7, or we can develop it in the below versions too?
It's safer to have your I'll not even say 1.6 is fine, but safer to have your machine configured to Java 1.7 even before you start your development activity. 1.7 is fine. 1.6 or 1.7 is fine.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay. So, okay, thanks team. Thanks for your time. And if there are no questions, I think
Now departing.
we'll close the call. And thanks for your time. And I will quickly share the recording. And so, any hardware recommendation? Hardware, I'm not sure whether it is for. So it supports both 34-bit, 32-bit, and 64-bit. So if you want to deploy the Worklight server on a 64-bit, yes, even on the development environment for Eclipse, you can use both your 32-bit environment Worklight Studio or your Eclipse Studio, and you can also use your 64-bit Eclipse Studio. So I think we are almost done. So thanks team, thanks once again for your time, and we'll touch base through mail, and I'll share my mobile number or my contact details, so you can henceforth send out mails to me or call me if you have any queries around Worklight. Thanks everyone.
Now departing.
Logesh?